So I got early access to Columbina, and she's quite ridiculous. And I'm not just talking about her gravity-defying walk. But the thing is, this Moon Goddess heavily depends on having other Nod-Krai characters in the team in order to reach some of the best damage in the game, especially when it comes to some supports like Inefa, where both of them can basically lift any unit out of the gutters of the meta. Yeah, even Mizuki now is good at floating around, while enemies get demolished on sight. However, in some special cases, like this Navia comp, she's capable enough just by herself to unlock new potential with the latest Lunar-Crystallize reaction. On the other hand, sometimes she relies a little too much on having someone like Llama on the team if you want to achieve proper main DPS output with her new Lunar Bloom attacks. Long story short, Columbina's situation is complicated, but in this Constellation Zero showcase video, I'm gonna reveal everything you need to know about this master of lunar reactions, including many team comps and loadouts I've tested, so that you can decide for yourself if she's worth pulling for. Alright, to start things off, for the most part of the video, I'll be showcasing Columbina with Prototype Amber, which is her best free-to-play craftable weapon, while at the same time, she will be using Serenade Artifact Set that has HP, and crit rate main stats. However, she's got like 4 viable sets in total, which I will showcase in this video, and I will make comparisons to the new Abate of Morningstar and Moon set as well. Finally, her talents are raised to level 10, and she is, of course, at Constellation 0. Oh, and yeah, I am on Creator Experience server, so content shown here is subject to change. Anyway, the most important thing that I'd like to first mention would be that Columbina enables all of the lunar reactions thanks to her third passive, meaning anyone on the team who caused Electrocharged turns it into Lunar Charged, Blooms become Lunar Blooms, and Hydro-Crystallize becomes Lunar-Crystallize. On top of that, this passive gives a small boost to lunar reactions based on Columbina's max HP by up to 7%, or basically when she has 35,000 HP, which will be very easy to reach. Now, for the first 2 reactions, I am assuming you already know how they work, so let's quickly go through Lunar-Crystallize. Basically, when the enemy has Hydro Aura on them, first time Geo is applied, Lunar-Crystallize is caused, and 3 of these Moon Drift constructs appear, and then every third Lunar-Crystallize reaction, 1 shot from each Moon Drift is fired off. So 3 total. In other words, it's like you build up the Lunar-Crystallize in advance, which won't do anything 3 times, and then 3 actual shots are fired off every third reaction. Here are some details you can quickly look at. It's honestly similar to how Lunar Charge works, so like anyone who contributes to this reaction, their stats are taken into account to calculate final damage, but the most interesting thing about this new reaction is that there's no limit like 2-second intervals Lunar Charge has, and the speed and quantity of these shots basically just depend on how often the Lunar-Crystallize reaction is caused. I mean, look, right now, without Zebai, this new reaction is decent, and for example, a team of Navia, Furina, and Shilonen can fire off those shots for around 20k damage each. And this is with Columbina's loadout shown below, because she will be the main contributor to this reaction's damage. Don't worry about the 80k Lunar-Crystallizes popping up, I'll soon explain how that works in a moment. All in all, this new reaction is pretty good, but it will become really powerful once Zebai is released, although that will be revealed in my video when we get closer to the second phase of Luna 4 update. Now, let me quickly show you how the skill works. When tapped, it deals a bit of initial damage, and for 25 seconds, this moon called Gravity Ripple appears behind the active character, and every 2 seconds, nearby enemies get damaged. Without Ascendant Gleam, the range is really small, like you almost have to hug the enemy as if you would be playing Barbara on the team. But I probably don't have to tell you this, in 99% of the teams, you will always want to have Ascendant Gleam active, since otherwise, you'd be missing out on strong Nod-Krai artifact set buffs, and in this case, you'd also have a crappy AoE with the skill. But here's why this skill really matters, and I'll keep it very simple. This whole wall of text states that while the skill is active, whenever anyone causes a lunar reaction, the moon gains 20 points every 2 seconds. And when 60 points are achieved, Columbina's skill fires off one of the 3 lunar reactions, depending on which one was caused the most. Or in a nutshell, every 6 seconds, Columbina unleashes a lunar attack, provided the team managed to cause a lunar reaction every 2 seconds at least, which won't be a problem to be honest. For example, in this Lunar Charge team, we can see after 6 seconds, Columbina delivers a massive 103,000 Lunar Charge hit. In Lunar Bloom comp, the skill fires off 5 shots of Lunar Bloom damage, each causing roughly 32,000 damage, or around 160k damage total. And in Lunar-Crystallize, that big 80k hit also comes from the skill. You can see the multipliers shown here, and as a reminder, the formula works different for lunar damage, so each of these numbers are further multiplied, and that's why they all hit so hard. Also, don't forget these lunar attacks do not scale with damage percent, only with Columbina's HP, EM, and crit stats. Oh, and yeah, her first passive grants her 5% critical rate whenever she causes lunar damage with the skill, up to 3 times with a 10-second duration, which gets refreshed after every new stack. So just like that, she can gain up to 15% crit rate after 18 seconds, which means usually this passive can be maintained at max stacks starting from second rotation onwards. Alright, now comes the burst. Columbina opens her beautiful eyes and deals AoE damage once, while at the same time, she summons a lunar domain for 20 seconds, which provides a simple yet pretty strong buff. As long as the team is within this domain, everyone's lunar damage is increased by 40% at level 10, which translates to decent upgrade as you can see here. However, this is where the second passive talent also kicks in. Every lunar reaction gains unique benefits thanks to lunar domain, and starting with lunar charged, there's 33% chance an additional hit will be caused by the thundercloud. As you can see here, 2 hits pop up one after another immediately. So that's actually quite strong coupled with the already tacked on 40% lunar damage boost. And then Lunar-Crystallize also has a similar boost. There's a 33% chance for every Moondrift hit to fire off an additional hit. Yet again, we can see instead of the usual 3 hits, now more of them show up thanks to the burst's passive. And then finally, Lunar Bloom reaction now grants Moonridge Dews, which appear below the usual Verdant Dews, and a total of 3 can be stored this way. And as you can see, they are charged up super fast. Like, it takes about a second, the first Verdant Dew didn't even charge yet, and already all 3 Moonridge Dews are already there. Now, you might be wondering, what's the benefit here? Well, to put it simply, this mostly matters right now if you have Lauma on the team, because previously if you played Lauma with Nefer, holding her skill was a bad idea since it would eat up Verdant Dews that Nefer needs, but with these extra Dews, now Lauma can easily hold the skill and consume all 3 Dews, and enough would be left for Nefer to spam her charge attacks. Basically, it's like you're playing with 6 Verdant Dews. And on top of that, this extra Dew generation also makes Nefer's playstyle much more comfy if you had problems with the Dews running out on her. All in all, this burst is really powerful, and by taking into account all of the benefits, the damage boosting becomes quite significant for Lunar Charged and Lunar Crystallize. The problem is that even if the burst costs 60 energy, Columbina in most teams will be off-field. Her particle generation is decent from the skill, but she still ends up needing quite a bit of ER, which luckily, at least with Prototype Amber's passive, that becomes less of an issue. But I am still working out the calcs, and I'd say this is how much ER she needs right now, especially when considering Stygian Onslaught. However, the ER needs will vary from team to team heavily. So yeah, good burst, but pretty demanding energy requirements. Still, there's one last thing I want to mention, Columbina's normal attacks. You see, her normals just deal hydro damage, nothing special. They are beautiful, but deal negligible damage. However, her charge attack has a special property. If the team has any Verdant Dews, including the Moonridge Dews, just like Nefer, Columbina's charge attack will consume 1 Dew and deliver 3 Lunar Bloom hits. The damage is pretty good even with Black Marrow Lantern free-to-play weapon. Roughly 45k damage from each hit, so 135k total per charge attack, but keep in mind, this is with Lauma on the team, who provides significant boosting for Lunar Bloom damage. Like, I am talking about a serious drop-off if Lauma is not on the team. So keep that in mind if you're thinking of playing Columbina as a carry. But speaking of which, here are some damage results I've recorded. With the Serenade set and by using her skill and burst with a fully buffed team, just by herself, she can help enable around 37k hits from the Thundercloud, and her own skill hits for around 103k lunar charge damage. With her signature, this damage goes up to 150k per hit, and something like Nivelette's signature helps her reach 124k damage per hit. Interestingly enough, if I give her the new Morning Star set, her lunar charge damage while she's using Prototype Amber, it actually shoots up and can go even higher with another Serenade user instead. So if anyone else on the team can use the Serenade set, I definitely recommend just giving Columbina the new set instead. Also, here's Black Marrow versus Signature comparison when using her as a main DPS. Her Lunar Bloom damage coming both from the charge attack and the skill ends up about 30% to 35% bigger with the Signature. So safe to say, while her free-to-play options are really great, her Signature gives a big bump to her personal damage. But in the current meta, I still believe her free-to-play weapons like Prototype Amber when playing as a support or Black Marrow as a main DPS are actually really good. It's just that the Signature provides a lot of value. On top of that, it can also help her restore 14 energy every rotation or so that helps a lot with reducing her ER needs. Overall, Columbina is a really simple to play unit. Just press skill and burst and swap to the rest of the teammates to enable all sorts of lunar reactions, and as a main DPS, just spam her charge attack like at least 5 to 6 times before buffs run out. Not much to it otherwise. Honestly, I think now is a good time we just go through some of the team comps I've experienced because that's where the most important details will be revealed. Okay, so to put it simply, the conclusion I have come to is that Columbina is a powerful upgrade for Lunar Charge teams. Like, I am talking about significant changes here. Previously, Flints, Innafa, Aino, and Sucrose was the best team variation, but now, poor Aino gets replaced with Bina, and you can see for yourself without even using Flints, already so much damage is caused together with Innafa when we look at Lunar Charge damage. And for example, in this team, I would say Innafa is better off with the new set, while Columbina uses Serenade set, and then obviously Sky set would be given to Flints and Vivi set for Sucrose. However, when I looked at it closer, it's pretty clear that the core of Columbina and Innafa, or as some are calling it Binefa, this duo has insane power level. For example, the last 2 slots become super flexible. Like, I could go for Auroran and Mizuki and just do this simple rotation where in the end, Mizuki is just floating around contributing some of the damage, but the big hitters of course being Binefa are the ones dealing the majority of damage. Interestingly enough, I could also give both of them the new artifact set, which improves their lunar damage as long as they're off field. And then I can give Serenade set to Raiden, for example. And she can act as a driver for the team. Yeah, I know, this might sound depressive when you think about it. Raiden Shogun acting as a glorified driver here, but hey, she still usually contributes to around 10% of team's damage and helps maintain Serenade buff. It's not much, but it's honest work. Or how about Hu Tao? Again, an old but beloved character, and now she actually feels quite refreshing with this duo in a team like this. Same goes for Arlecchino, not like she was having that many problems before, but again, the overvapes plus all those lunar charge hits feel super satisfying to pull off. Like, the thing is, in my upcoming Columbina's guide, I'll talk about a lot more of the teams you can essentially wheelchair with this duo, as the theory crafters call it. But at the end of the day, Innafa and Columbina, just by themselves, is now basically one of the strongest archetypes in the game. And you can just throw in any 2 other characters, provided they don't mess up the lunar charge reactions, and they will function really well. Like, not at the same level as Flints or Nefer with Columbina, but you can just use any unit and usually achieving the 100k DPS won't be a problem. Obviously, like 80 to 90% of the damage will be caused by the Lunar Girls, but hey, at least now someone like Ayato can be unbenched. What's not to love about that? But moving over to Lunar Bloom comps, if playing with Lauma and Nefer, you won't notice a major damage improvement for Nefer, but that's okay because Columbina's Burst's passive now allows Lauma to easily use her hold skill, which means Lauma can deal good damage with her skill, and she will also provide enough him stacks that the whole team can utilize, since remember, Columbina's skill will fire off 5 of those Lunar Bloom shots, basically every 6 seconds, and they will consume Lauma stacks to deal much better damage. As for the last slot, it could be Cookie for healing mostly, or it could be Nefa for even higher damage plus shielding, or it could be Sucrose or Nahida for extra EM boosting. Like, the thing is, Columbina's main contributions here are to help with dew generation, boost Lunar Bloom damage with burst, and provide her own personal damage, which is quite good. Usually with a free-to-play build, she still ends up contributing at least 500,000 damage, which is nothing to scoff at. And overall, this leads to about 20% team's DPS increase, which is quite significant. However, if you only could choose one for Nefer, then it would definitely be Lauma first because her buffing is a lot more significant than Columbina's. That's pretty much an undeniable fact, unless I missed out on something, but Nefer really wants Lauma in order to achieve her true potential, while Columbina for Lauma and Nefer acts more like a strong upgrade over someone like Aino. Now, moving over to just strictly Lauma and Columbina duo, this is where playing Bina as main DPS is recommended because her own Lunar Bloom damage from the charge attacks is quite strong, and then the skill also unleashes additional 5 hits every 6 seconds or so. But after playing for a while, I wouldn't say that carry Columbina is better than Nefer. It's just not on the same level, and I think Hoyo intended for this to be the case since it would be pretty weird if Bina at C0 could outperform C0 Nefer as a main DPS. But for like 99% of the content, main DPS Lunar Bloom Columbina is a very powerful variation you can go for, especially if you also have Innafa who brings her own personal damage into the team. And actually, this comp of C6 Aino, Innafa, Lauma, and Columbina is quite ridiculous, and I've had a lot of fun using it. But keep in mind, it is so easy to overcap critical rate because Columbina's starting critical rate is at 24.2% after Final Ascension, then 15% more from the passive, then 30% from Sky Set, and then even Lauma gives 10% crit rate for Lunar Blooms. So she can already reach nearly 80% critical rate without any of the artifact stats, which is pretty crazy. And focusing on HP percent and critical damage is like the biggest priority while grabbing a few crit rate rolls along the way. However, you can also create some other interesting team comps with Lauma and Columbina. For example, with Durin, you can go for a Burgeon comp that will work pretty well, except you'll need some sustain like healing or shielding. Or this team of Neuvillette is super satisfying to play, and I even found that quick swapping to Columbina and unleashing some of her charge attacks can be a fun way to break out of the monotony. Still, I've been babbling about all these team comps assuming there's either Innafa or Lauma on the team. What about teams without them? Well, that's the thing. As I said at the start of the video, Columbina shines best in Nod-Krai comps, especially with one of those two supports. Don't get me wrong though, Flynn's team without Innafa is still powerful enough with something like Fischl and Sucrose or Yehoda. Although in Nefer's case, Lauma is a better choice. However, Columbina still brings enough value as a temporary solution if you still plan to get Lauma later. Outside of Nod-Krai comps, I mean, you could utilize Columbina with Tenacity Set and Thrilling Tales to boost Skirk's damage, provided Escoffier is also on the team, but like, almost the entire kit will be useless. She will be just dealing some hydro damage and provide buffs from her gear, so nothing too crazy. The silver lining right now would be Lunar-Crystallize teams. Without Zebai, a comp of Navia with supports like Farina and Shilonen can be decent enough, and I am talking about endgame content, which is pretty cool how we can also swap out Navia for Ito, which will feel a little weaker, but hey, it's Ito. You can now mess around with him in a new team archetype. Lastly, you might have noticed I haven't talked about any of the free-to-play variations with Columbina. Well, the truth is, you could go for something like Aoife, Xingqiu, Fischl, or go for another moon sign unit like Aino, Ent, or Yehoda, who can boost lunar damage and enable Ascend and Gleam. As you already saw, it's best to treat Columbina with free-to-play comps the same way as Innafa when she was released back in the day. Except Bina's main purpose is to super power up existing lunar teams, while the rest of the team variations outside of lunar comps can work in a decent way, but it won't be as amazing. At least that's how I felt when testing all of these variations. So what do I think about Columbina? I think that it's pretty clear her main selling point is to power up existing Nod-Krai teams, and to achieve the highest possible potential, she will rely on other supports such as Innafa or Lauma. That's the reality. She's not really flexible in terms of good damage outside of lunar comps, but on the other hand, with only a small roster of all the lunar damage focused units, there are a ton of variations where you can start mixing and matching stuff. So I would say as long as you have a couple of Nod-Krai units, mainly one of the 5 stars, she's going to feel amazing. Like seriously, she's a walking nuke bomb on the overworld enemies. Anyway, I'd appreciate if you could hit the like button on this video and subscribe to my channel because I will be posting a lot more Luna 4 content, including my Ultimate Columbina's guide, where I will go into all the details on how to build all of these teams and which weapon and artifact set is the best one to use for her. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you very soon.